from Loop by Loop Studio, and today I wanted to show you what it's like to use t-shirt material and different cotton materials in your rug hooking projects. I'm a rug hooking artist who has a company called Loop by Loop Studio where I sell kits for people, and I also make hooked rugs, and I've always made them out of materials like this, which are wool fabric strips and various woolen yarns and really high quality expensive materials, but I miss out on that recycling aspect that really rug hooking is kind of traditionally based upon. And with all these t-shirts out there in the world, I kind of wanted to save them from landing in landfills a little bit. So I started researching rug hooking with t-shirts, and that's what brings me to you today. So what I'm going to show you in this video is first how to break down a t-shirt to make either a ball of something that's kind of like yarn, or break them down using a Sizzix machine. And you can use these strips either flat, which is shown here, or stretched and curled, and they actually hold up pretty good. So looking at it from far away, you probably wouldn't even know that it's made from recycled materials. You would just think it looks like a hooked rug, like any other hooked rug. So you can find out more information about me by going to loopbyloopstudio.com. And if you have any questions, just throw them in the comments below, and good luck with your t-shirt project.
All right, we're here at Salvation Army. We're gonna see what we can find for t-shirts. And of course, we're gonna be looking for big and tall men's because that will get the most yarn bang for our buck. So let's go in.
Okay, we just got back from Salvation Army, and basically everything they had there that had a yellow tag was 50% off. So I made sure to get all t-shirts that have yellow tags, and I think I picked up each one of these t-shirts for about $1.50, except for the white one. The white one was actually 50 cents, so that's pretty good. So I really got a rainbow of colors here. Got some blues. These are some nice blues and teals. And this one's kind of a green. And most of these are men's t-shirts because you get more fabric out of a man's t-shirt. But then to get some of the pinks and yellows, we did have to go over to the women's section. So it's not bad for, I think, $23. I got all these colors of wool, cotton, and we're gonna, I guess, spend a while cutting them up. Okay, so I am going to now show you how to cut down one whole t-shirt into a ball of yarn. And the reason why I like the ball of yarn is because I just find it to be a lot more contained and organized than having a whole bunch of wool strips hanging around. The other thing, much like wool fabric, when you cut that down, this stuff does shed. So I find it to be a lot cleaner and easier when you have it into a ball. So I'm going to show you how to cut down this t-shirt. I have an old purple t-shirt here that you can see there's paint splatters and bleach all over it. And we're going to be working from basically the armpit and the V here down. And you can use these, the top of the t-shirt for other projects. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut across from armpit to armpit, just eyeballing as best I can. Now you could do this if you were somebody who is, super all about measuring and make it perfect. You could pull out a ruler, you could use a rotary cutter, but I'm just eyeballing it. These strips aren't going to be perfect. They're gonna be, kind of irregular, and that's fine for my purposes. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off the bottom seam here, because that's going to be a part that's going to be a little too difficult to use. Oh, it looks like I missed my back seam here. Just pull it towards myself, make sure that all the hem is off. Okay, this I'm going to discard. So now that I have a pretty good piece of cotton t-shirt here to use, I'm basically just going to lay it out, and I'm going to take one of my seams here, and I'm going to fold it over the other side, but leave about an inch here. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm gonna cut about an inch. Every inch, I'm gonna cut up over this seam, making sure that I don't cut this seam. So I'm gonna do that now. Whoops. A good pair of scissors is really crucial to doing this part so that your hand doesn't get tired and you don't get frustrated. So we'll speed up a little bit so you can watch me do it and fast forward. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spread this out. You end up getting sort of this rib cage effect where you have kind of what you would call sort of the spine here and then these pieces coming off of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes and spread this out for myself, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to cut it. Okay, so this is the most complicated part, so I want to zoom in, and there's sort of a reason why you need to spread it out like this. If I were to just snip across here, I'd end up with a whole bunch of rings of my t-shirt. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start cutting diagonally. So this first strip here, I'm gonna actually cut diagonally by itself. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move from this point to this point to this point, and so on. So I'm cutting diagonally from point to point, and this is what's gonna give me a continuous ribbon. And I wanted to show you a close-up of what I'm doing because it gets complicated, or it gets confusing fast. I kind of hold it up with my hands as I move along and keep snipping from point to point all the way up this spine. Okay, this last one, I don't have any more diagonals, so I'm just gonna cut that last little piece off. So that'll be my other end. And now I have all this ribbon that's together. So the next step is, if you wanna widen up and you can look at me again, I'm gonna find one of those ends. And now I'm going to take the ribbon that I just made. Oh, where's my end? Now I have to find the end because I bunched it all together. Here it is, here's one. I'm gonna take that end, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lightly stretch this fabric through my hand and pull it. And what this is doing is this is lightly curling your 1-inch thick pieces of fabric into something that's more of a yarn-like consistency. And basically by doing the 1-inch thick pieces, I end up with kind of a bulky weight yarn when it's all curled. And you can curl this as many times as you want. I watched one YouTube video where someone said they do this twice. And when I was practicing making this yarn, I also a couple times, there's some of these seams here from the seams of my t-shirt. Sometimes this, they came apart because this is sort of a delicate material once you start to, you know, cut it into strips. Every once in a while it might break or it might stretch in kind of a funny way. That's all right. It's fine for our purposes. And if it breaks into strips, it's not really that big a deal because as rug hookers, we sort of work in strips anyway a lot of times. All right, so now I have my pile of yarn. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll it into a ball. find this to be a very satisfying part. All right, just tuck this little end in here so it doesn't unravel on me. And when we come back, I'll show you how I rug hook with all these different materials. We can check it out. Okay, so I'm back here with my Sizzix machine, and basically this is just one way to cut down your cotton t-shirts. So I have this piece of t-shirt here. It's actually folded up, so it's quite long, and there's a seam in the middle. So this seam might break when I actually cut my strips down, but it seems to make sense to just kind of fold the fabric for right now. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to send this cotton t-shirt through the Sizzix machine with these specially made dies for 1/4 inch wide strips from the Old Tattered Flag, and that's oldtatteredflag.com. And they make these dies to go through the Sizzix machine that's popular with rug hookers and quilters and other types of crafters. But they make them specifically with the dies that will cut wool into fabric strips. So of course it's going to work on cotton because cotton is a lot thinner than wool. We should have no problem cutting this. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this t-shirt and I'm just going to try to line it up with the lines that are on this die. That might be a little hard to see from the video, you know, because it's a black die, but I'm just lining it up on there. I have my plastic lead underneath my die, and then I'm going to take my other plastic lead and put it on top of the die, and then I'm going to send it through my machine here. So let me move over here. You just sort of push the die and the leads through while you are twisting the handle on the machine. And once it goes through, you can kind of pull the rest of those leads out. Let's see what we got here. So taking that off. Now you can see that it actually did a great job cutting these. Up at the top here, it looks like I missed the die by a little bit, so I'm just going to snip that off. But really, these strips are not that bad. Now, one thing about these strips is that they are cotton t-shirts, so they are not as durable as wool. And what happens when you stretch them, you basically get a really thin type yarn because the cotton naturally will curl once it's stretched. But I'll show you in a few minutes. We actually tried hooking with these curled, but we also hooked with them while being careful not to stretch them, and we got a pretty good loop that was about the same size as a wool loop, only a little bit thinner. So we'll show you that coming up. But I think all in all, you know, these are all the strips we got from that, and that's not too bad. So that's just one way to cut down your cotton t-shirts if you wanted them in strip form instead of a ball. Okay, so I'm back here with my linen stretched on a gripper frame here. You know, obviously you want to stretch it nice and taut. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to hook with some of these wool fabric strips. So I think I showed you the inch wide t-shirt yarn we're going to try out. And we're also going to try out the Sizzix cut 1/4 inch wool strips. We're going to try to do it both flat and stretched out and sort of twisted and see what different effects we get. So let's start with the Sizzix cut stretched, very thin stretched jersey material here. And so this is going to be pretty thin. So I'm using primitive linen. I'm using a coarse size hook. And with this, I know it's going to be pretty thin, so I'm going in about every hole. And I bring that up about 1/4 inch high. Let's see what kind of effect we get here. Yeah, so I think it would take a lot of coverage if you just use these kinds of strips that are stretched into something. When you stretch it out, it looks like you get something more like a number 4 wool or maybe a number 5 wool because of the curl, the thickness of the width of the wool strip kind of shrinks a little bit. Let's see if it's a little bit different from not when I don't stretch out the wool or the cotton strip. So by not encouraging that stretch, it looks like I get a little more width of the cotton strip there. And I quite like that look. I still think that you have to hook them a lot closer together than you would a wool fabric strip, just because of the natural thinness of the cotton. But, you know, it's still pretty cool. It's got this interesting heather to it. These have not been hand dyed. These are just t-shirts that I found. So this green one that's going to come up is actually the 1-inch wide curled cotton jersey fabric here. You can see it's a lot thicker. It's much thicker. It looks a lot thicker, feels a lot thicker. It's a lot more, I don't feel like I have to be as careful with it. And it covers pretty good. I can also hook this a little more like yarn, in that I'm not really concerned with the direction of my wool loops. Whoops, pulled up a little red there. I can hook them kind of a little bit more haphazardly in any direction. So that's one of the things, one of sort of the advantages of working with a thicker wool fabric strip, is that it's a little more yarn-like in its treatment here. So yeah, so that's just a couple different effects that I found with hooking t-shirts. Let me hook with a wool fabric strip so you can sort of compare and contrast. So these are all, like I said, t-shirts here, and now this is my wool fabric strip coming up. Obviously wool is very luxurious and soft and pretty, but if you're somebody who really wants to recycle, who maybe wants to make washable rugs that you can machine wash using monk's cloth and t-shirt material, then you know, maybe t-shirts is the way to go. You can obviously dye t-shirts too to make them more interesting colors than what you can find. But you know, if you're really comparing and contrasting the wool strip and the t-shirt, from far away you probably wouldn't even be able to tell the difference.